It's kind of a mysterious world we live in. So we're not even sure how we ended up in a particular family or city. And we really don't have an idea of when we might depart. And there are seeming complications within this world at every moment. I'd heard that Alexander the Great was the one who was able to solve the problem of the Gordian knot. It had been tied so tightly and the rope was so thick, people were challenged to come and undo the knot. And hundreds have come to win a royal prize. And when Alexander came, he just pulled out his sword and cut it in half. People said anybody could have done that. He said, yeah, but they didn't. And although everyone's trying different ways to untie the knots here in the material world, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Vidyate hridaya grantish chijante sarvasamshaya shiyante chasyakaramani drishteva manishvare. When one comes to full realization of oneself as the master of the senses, and that then there's a master above us, the super soul. So then that knot is cut. We have no reason to loiter in the material world. It's like a dream that one's attached to. And when we awaken from that dream, then we realize that we never were part of it. And we realize our eternal purpose in relationship to Krishna. So we're all doing something very serious. It's a serious lifetime we're engaged in here. It's very high stakes, because when you're given something to invest and you're fully aware of it, then there's some responsibility there. If someone squanders what they're given by a benevolent person, they're known as a miser. If they don't spend it properly or they lose it haphazardly, then they're foolish. So we've been given the greatest opportunity. We have a lifespan. We have the knowledge, and we also have the practice. So it's important to help one another, because even though we have all these assets, still we're put upon by our own senses and mind, the internal sense. What to speak of people who have no knowledge and no practice? They're blissfully foolish. And so we can do the greatest good to ourselves by taking as full advantage as possible of the process and the knowledge we've been given, and to be generous, to offer it to other people. So much happiness and generosity, especially when you have unlimited assets to give. Just thinking how Mahaprabhu and his associates gave away the contents of the proverbial storehouse of love of Godhead. And the more they gave it, the more it increased. And so the more we have generosity of heart to give to other people, the more it grows in us, that storehouse. And the more our community thrives as well. And I'd like to hear what anybody's been thinking, realizing, going through. 1, 2.
I had a question and a realization. I'll start with the realization. So when you said Alexander the Great used a sword to cut open the knot, I was thinking of this sword called Excalibur, which no one could lift except someone who had technique. It wasn't about strength, it was about whoever was the chosen one. That way Krishna's choosing his devotees from that sword. I was thinking that way because Krishna chooses which devotees can pull it up from the stone and which can't. It's like the devotees who can excel in the spiritual path and who can't. The devotees who will continue to not follow the 10 regulative principles, the 10, I don't know, what's the word? The 10 principles and the 4 regulative principles versus the 10 people versus the people who follow the 10 principles and the 4 regulative principles. And my question was, since Mridanga represents Bhagwan Nityananda, Veena represents Saraswati, but what does the harmonium represent?
Balaram and Saraswati is the Veena? Mridanga is Balaram.
Yeah, Veena is Saraswati. But then what does the harmonium represent?
What does the harmonium represent? What? Okay, she gave you a categorical answer philosophically. Balaram's all paraphernalia. Okay, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful kirtan. So recently on book distribution, one of my realizations was that the presentation that we give to each person is the same, but the response that we get is different. So in that way, all we can do is go out, touch the pavement, and do our service, and Krishna will send the ripe souls. We don't change anything in our presentation. It's just that who comes to us. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you. One, two.
Maharaj, I was wondering, reading about the modes of material nature, it describes a lot of symptoms of them in the Bhagavad Gita, but they also seem like the causes to determine which mode you're under the influence of. Like if you're clean, you're under the mode of goodness. So I was a little bit confused on the symptom or cause and how the mode of natures actually influence you.
In the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada describes and quotes from Shastra about how in the spiritual world there's 3 main potencies. There's Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit. But when they get translated into the material world because of the perverted intention, those 3 potencies become Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So they're a Shakti of Krishna in this world. In fact, when Mahavishnu glances at the potential energy of the material world, the 3 modes become activated. But his glance, of course, is translated through Rama Devi, and then the material nature, it's not actually, Mahavishnu doesn't actually touch it because he has a representative that comes to, because it's crossing over into a perverted realm. And so those 3 modalities that bring the highest pleasure in the spiritual world and facility for devotional service and knowledge of devotional service, they're the same energies but translated into the material world, and they become hladakari, tapakari, or they become the source of our misery and entanglement in this world. So they're described as Shaktis. And when we adjust our lifestyle, for instance, if you improve your behavior, the way you keep yourself clean and your environment, that also invites the mode of goodness. But where would you get the idea in the first place to do that, or the impetus? By some association with somebody who already has sattva, who suggests it to you, so then you'd be inspired. So they're simultaneous as the energy, as we're involved with the energy, that we also take the behavior, but we take the behavior and it also helps us to improve. There's clear evidence from the Bhagavatam when Krishna describes the three modes of material nature that he encourages us to cultivate it. It's a cultivation. So we can cultivate those qualities by making sure that we organize our environments so that we're in touch with those Shaktis. They kind of come simultaneously. It's hard to separate the two. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Hare Krishna. In class in the past few days, you were talking about UOM, which is the ultimate object of meditation, and how grateful we are to know that ultimate object of meditation is Krishna. And yesterday at the Harinam in Lytton Plaza, I was able to realize this point a little bit more while distributing books and speaking to some folks that came up to our table. And my realization was that introducing someone to the ultimate object of meditation provides the best satisfaction. Even if the conversation is 5 seconds, 10 seconds, it feels transcendental. It's not ordinary. And I met some great people, and it's like people are just searching and looking. And you have it, and you give it to them. And we met someone who's part of the movement, and they lost their way somehow, and they met us, and it was the most beautiful thing ever. And this guy was just going and buying groceries, and he stopped and he said, "You made me think about something entirely different. I wasn't even thinking about this." And then people from all around the world just visiting California and stopping by the booth, and them stopping is not ordinary, and the conversations are not ordinary, and it just made the realization even stronger that when you have it and you give it to someone, there's nothing better.
Yay. Is anybody else here? Akshara Nitai. Give him a Hail Mary to the back there.
Hare Krishna. Something I've been thinking about for some time was this phrase of a verse I think many people have read, and they obviously might know better than me, but Krishna says to the 4 types of people that approach him, Udaraha sarva evaite, that all these people, they're magnanimous souls. When I read that for the first time, it didn't click. But hearing things like Manya Mataji mention and the ways in which we see devotees coming in Janmashtami and having this, even if they're not able to muster it up regularly, but just for that one day, they're able to come and just see Krishna, and they've taken out time and effort, they waited in the line for that. It makes us, at least it made me kind of reflect on what we can possibly do to make them get even a couple extra seconds of Krishna Katha. Like even if it's what devotees are doing outside, which is now using a projector, so that they can, even if they're outside and they're thinking that, okay, there's no space in the temple, or, I might as well just go somewhere else. Now they have space to sit and maybe stick around and hear a little bit more. And every bit counts, and it makes a profound impact, even if somebody says, "Hi, how are you doing?" and has a real conversation rather than, rather than the Hare Krishna, fold your hands and walk away. So, thank you.
Looks like Naimisharanya out there now. Yes. Someone over here. Somebody else.
Maharaj, I was thinking the power of prasadam. Actually, just from 9 months we were giving prasadam to one of the neighbors, and it was just like after event. I mean, the neighbors who I think really wanted some food, and it was always like, after some event, some prasadam is left over. No one wants to take it, and then she was very eager to take the prasadam, and we were never preaching to her, and I could see how slowly her heart was transforming. She was, I mean, there was so much gratitude whenever she was accepting that. And I used to think, okay, I'm just giving her rice and dal, it's because that's what usually remains. And then she was even storing in the fridge and eating it for weeks and weeks. And then after some time, she accepted spiritual books. She took Chaitanya Charitamrita, she gave donation. Then today she shared that we were just talking about, I think we were again giving her dropping some prasadam, and then she saw our bead bag, and she said, and I think, so she said, I saw one more man having a cloth bag like this, and when I stopped him, he said he's chanting. And then she said, I'm also very stressed, and I go for a walk, can you get me this bead bag? And so, and then she accepted again we dropped the prasadam, and then the thing is, when we were going to drop prasadam, it didn't click us, but when we came out of the road, we saw she's actually neighbor of Mali Mataji and Shivas Pandit Prabhuji, and and whom she saw chanting was Shivas Pandit Prabhuji. And I think she has been seeing Prabhuji chanting, and then it has in her mind, and then also parallelly she's taking prasadam, and then I could see how Krishna is arranging for her all these, just had appreciation for all this.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
Yesterday I was watching devotees getting festival site set up, and they were taking things from external shed to the parking lot, and parking lot to the external shed. And Akshanitai, Venudhari Prabhu, and many other teams, they were just working so hard. But they were in so much ecstasy. I could see that actually they are receiving so much in giving. And I felt that even though they were tired from the Balaram Appearance Day, but I felt like because they're contributing into giving something bigger, I felt like they had the pie, but they were sharing with others. By sharing, it was getting bigger and bigger. And their enthusiasm was actually so contagious that I didn't even want to go home. So I wanted to just express my gratitude to yesterday in the 99 degrees that they were working hard, but they were actually receiving so much more cool breeze in their heart. So it was so contagious. Hare Krishna.
Wow. Yes. Okay. One, two.
So I had one question about the verses we read earlier in the Krishna room, the purports from the Upadeshamrita. So in there, one place it was written that that Krishna is not within anything; everything is within Krishna. But I was thinking, Krishna is the Paramatma within the heart of every living entity, right? So how do these two things reconcile?
Well, even it's described in the Gita how the soul never mixes with anything either. So they're categorically two different energies altogether. And just as air can be injected into mud, there's a way in which, although they seem to be mixed, they actually never mix. The air always remains separate. And there are different metaphors given for the ways in which Krishna's in the world, but he's not in the world. Because of the categorical difference in the energies themselves. So he also describes in the 9th chapter of the Gita by saying, "Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am everywhere and although I pervade all things, still I have my separate identity." And that's achintya, because Krishna is not definable by normal physical laws that you can say he's in one place. And he's in every place, but at the same time, he's separate from it. And that's what he describes as his mystic opulence. So that's, I would say, the categorical difference between the material and spiritual, that we actually never mix. And Krishna has that feature that although he's everything, he's within everyone, still he remains separate at the same time. Mystic opulence.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Your turn, then your turn.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. During lecture today, you were mentioning how bhakti shows us that beyond the constant struggles of the material world, there's always a joyful life in connection with Krishna. And to enter into that higher realization and higher life, all we need to do is open our hearts and our ears to Krishna's loving pastimes. So I feel like this point really resonated with me, because whether it's I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam or I'm just listening to a lecture, I feel a shift inside of me. And it's like, I feel a shift inside of me where I feel a more sense of peace and purpose, and really the material struggles don't really matter anymore. So I feel like this shows how our home is truly in the spiritual world and not really in the material world, because of this shift that we feel inside. So that was just my realization.
That's a good deduction. Okay, last one. Okay, 1, 2. Always a good bet to go out with a bye.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Instead of a bang, we'll go out with a bye.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So when we were chanting Ishopanishad, one of the verses caught my eye, mantra 8. So there's this phrase, without veins. So the personality of Godhead is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins. So does veins, one meaning of course is like the physical veins, but is there another meaning behind this phrase?
In this context, as Prabhupada describes in the purport, means that it doesn't have a corporal body like a material body. It's Satchidananda body. But Krishna can manifest various features to look like a normal, ordinary person. But that's what it means. His body is not a series of pumps and levers and things like that. Satchidananda. Okay, bye. You get the last word.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm not sure how to properly articulate the question, but we're typically said that the soul is individual and unique for each and every one. But there are also these external samsaras that we have, and they're separate from the soul. But are there unique personality traits to the soul? Like, for example, if someone is serious, they have a dhiradatta relationship with Krishna or something like that? Or is that not related?
Well, it's not necessarily related to our material personality, but the soul does have a unique character. The souls do have unique characteristics, and in relationship with Krishna, which Rupa Goswami describes in the Bhakti Samrita Sindhu, the awakening of that sense of relationship. He describes as it comes into the mind and heart of the devotee who has developed, has gone past anartha nivritti and ruchi, and it appears as if the devotee has a predisposition towards a particular relationship with Krishna, which is usually manifest by an inclination to follow a particular devotee in Vraj who's interacting with Krishna in a particular way. It seems to the devotee that it's the devotee's idea, but it's actually Krishna inviting the devotee to serve in such a way So both things happen at the same time. It indicates also that in liberated life there is a relationship that's unique with Krishna. But it's not reflected in our external feature as a man, woman, rabbit, peacock, or whatever in this material world, because those are a combination of elements created because of our previous karmas, and they're superfluous to our identity as a soul. Drishtai sabhava janita bahushashta dosha na prakritattvamiha bhaktidanashit pashyat gangam nasamna kalabud buddhapena pankar brahma dravatvama bhakachati niradharmai. It can be used in various ways, but it's also clear that we don't consider a devotee's relationship with Krishna based on their external feature. Was that the essence of your question? Is that our material personality, is it related to our spiritual personality? Does it shine forth in that way? If somebody's already a liberated soul, the characteristics of a particular devotee can manifest already in this world. When Vidura and Uddhava were speaking, and Vidura was questioning Uddhava, it's described in the Bhagavatam that Uddhava had to wrest his consciousness away from his engagement in the spiritual world to be present with Vidura to discuss with him. So although he was in the world, as Vidura, and he obviously had his relationship with Krishna here, he's one of the examples of a liberated soul who's in the world, in his body, and in relationship to Krishna. And of course, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinchana sarvaragunas tatra samasate sura harava bhakta sukhuto mahadguna manorathe nasati davato bihi. As one becomes purified, we go through transformations because of Krishna's association. So as was discussed in the company of Haridas Thakur and Sanatana Goswami, when they were in Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed with them about how when somebody takes to devotional service, especially you mentioned Diksha Kali Bhaktakari Atma Samarpan, when somebody surrenders to Krishna and accepts Diksha, he said they're no longer in the same category in this world. They may not have a siddha sarup, a completely perfect form, but they have what he called the sadhana sarup. It's a different category. It's no longer a material entity. And when we find in the Bhagavatamrita, Gopakumar came in there's a description there where even while they're performing pastimes here, he noticed his body completely changed. Although his personality was manifesting as an eternal servant of Krishna, as a cowherd boy, and he did have that vaish, and that also became apparent when he went back to Godhead also, and even just before he went back. So it depends on the degree of consciousness that one's developed in relationship to Krishna, that the transcendental qualities would manifest. And I did quote Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatiya Kinshana, that by devotional service, naturally the qualities come out.